Welcome, my brothers. Welcome to this episode. This, I believe, is the 6th episode of the Parables from the Pit, Stories from Warrior Week. With me, my guest today is Mr. Kelly Curtis. Kelly, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, Brother Sam.
All right. Good to have you in studio. Good to have you in studio, man. You drove down from L.A., right after your baseball practice with your son, and then you're here in the studio today. Graduate of Warrior Week 22, in the process of coming into Warrior Week 44, double-digit dad. Inside of this, man, we're going to have a conversation today, and the conversation is going to be, we're going to break all fucking barriers right now that most people are like hesitating to talk about. And we're going to talk about fucking racial issues. We're going to talk about limitation. We're going to talk about this prison that men create for themselves based on 3 fucking layers. Layer number 1, color. Layer number 2, culture. Layer number 3, religion. These subtitles that we give ourselves and we associate ourselves in order to separate and create cliques, separations from the real fact of being simply a goddamn fucking human. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how that's come into play in today's marketplace, in today's raising kids, in today's being a husband, in today's just being a fucking man in society.
Yep.
So, Kelly, we go back and we're going to talk about, dude, like your story being here, it's actually, it's a good story. I'm going to let you tell you, man. When was it 9 years ago you see this guy on the stage, and then just tell it, man, how you got to all the way to like Warrior Week 22.
I'll tell it. And it was 2007. As a matter of fact, it was September 2007, and I'll tell you how I know exactly when that was in a minute. But 2007, I went to a conference in Las Vegas. I was in the mortgage industry at the time. And I'm at the conference. It was a huge conference. Tony Robbins was there, Les Brown. There's some big names at that conference. And in one of the presentations, there was a guy, actually, there was 2 guys. There was Garrett and Garrett. And this guy starts talking. And for whatever reason, out of all the people there, and we were there for 2-3 days, 2-3 days. I remember this guy, and and my wife will even tell you, said afterwards, I even told her, I was like, man, there was this guy here, and I don't even know why, but he just resonated with me.
Yeah.
And there was a frequency there. It was like, whoa. And I don't even know if he was even talking about anything important. But whatever it was, there was a connection. So fast forward a few years later, I see him online doing some things like, oh, yeah. And I call isn't that the guy that was at the conference? So, yeah, that was him. A few years later, I see the documentary on when he was in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, I knew who it was, but he was a completely different man.
Yeah.
I mean, not even the same guy at all. And then hearing the story, it was so parallel to a lot of things that I went through, being in the mortgage industry, having just a lot of excess, and then losing all that excess, and then trying to climb out of it. And so, his story also resonated with me. And so I called, and I think I talked to you first.
Yeah, man.
Talked to Sam. He tried to get some money out of me that first.
Yeah, money man.
Which is good, but what he was saying is something that I needed at the time, because I had been on this for several years, searching and looking, finding answers, and I had bits and pieces of it, but the missing link, I felt that, wow, I think I can find it there.
Yeah,
with these guys.
So inside of, like, dude, you're sitting here, you recognize the same guy that kind of moved you in an audience a couple of years back, 8 years back or what, man?
Yeah, it was 8-9 years prior.
That's impressive to just recall, like, this random dude in between all these celebrities, right? We go to these events and these seminars, like, we remember some of this stuff, but to remember this random dude that came in, he must have some kind of fucking impact on you, at least then.
He did. One of the things that he was competing in triathlon at the time.
Yeah.
And so was I. So that was one of the things he's also competing. But just I can't explain exactly what it was. It was something in the certainty that he was bringing, but it was something. Now, what's funny, Sam, is just last night.
Yeah.
I come in. I get home. And my wife had been cleaning out a lot of the, stuff in the office and home, and she found my notebook.
Shit, from that event.
And she saw, and so she had the page opened on my desk.
Okay.
Of my notes from Garrett Gunnarsson. I meant to bring it today.
Shit.
No, I was like, what the fuck?
Man, do you remember anything on the note? Did you look at it quickly?
Oh yeah, I remember the notes.
So what were you saying? Like, what was a couple of some of the notes that you took? This is like 9 years back, bro.
Yeah, and it had the date, and it had all the other speakers too. It was a big notebook.
Yeah, okay.
And so she found it, and she said, "Wait a minute!" And she saw Garrett.
Yeah.
And so she sat it on my desk, and so when I got in last night, I was like, "Holy shit!"
Dude. Smart. So talk to me. Like, what do you remember about the notes? Just last night, what did you see?
It was something about seeing is believing, or having certainty, or moving clouds. The way I take notes is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I vividly I remember everything about being there.
It's crazy, man. So there comes a time in our lives when there's a conversation that takes place, a conversation that is kind of like out of our hand, right, Kelly? It's like, hey, man, I didn't sign up for this, right? I didn't sign up to come and listen to Garrett, but somehow, somewhere, the universe delivered this message to me. So I'm sitting there and I download this. I don't really act upon it. Kind of like you, if you're watching the podcast right now or you're listening to the podcast, inside of this conversation today, as we get deeper and deeper into the pit and tell the parables of the pit, there might be a piece of this that resonates with you, that can move you right away to do something about it, or that can actually move the direction where you're heading just by a little angle. And years later, just like Kelly, you come across the same message one more time, you apply, you go through that hard conditions to get accepted, you come inside and you go through the experience. Let's talk about the pain you were feeling, man. Like, what was Kelly's pain when you came to 22? Why was Kelly coming into this experience? What was Kelly seeking? And we're going to talk about, like, across body, being, business, and balance inside of all those quadrants. What was Kelly missing, brother?
Good question, Coach. I think at that time, I have to go back a few years prior, and I had went on this real spiritual kind of search. For those of you who do know me, my brothers, I grew up as Jehovah's Witness, and if you know anything about the religion, there are some very particular do's and don'ts about it. And so, when I got to the point where I chose to seek my own answers, it took me on a journey. And because for the first time I got a chance to decide what do I believe in, not because of what religion I happen to be born into, or because of my parents, or because of my family, but what the fuck do I believe? And, I was at a point where I started questioning every belief I had, from religion to what I thought about things, everything. I just started to second guess. And do I really feel that, or is this some shit that was put on me? Is this how I really feel about, everything, about life, about marriage, about relationships, about work, about my everything? Is it me, or is it did someone give this to me? Because I might choose or make the same decision. I might come back around, yeah, I actually do believe in that, but I didn't want anything that I held dear to be the result of someone else placing a decision on me. I wanted to make the decision. So this took some years. And so I finally got to a place where, I had some peace there, but, I didn't know how to, I didn't have any tactical knowledge of how to put it into place. I didn't know how to apply it to my family. I didn't know how to apply it to my business. I'd always been somewhat active, but I didn't have a map, and so what Warrior provided was that tactical piece that I had been missing, because I already kind of had a lot of things set in my mind, or at least thought I had some things that all right, this is kind of who I am, this is how I operate, this is how I see the world. But the biggest question I think a lot of guys have out there, okay, when I wake up tomorrow, what the fuck do I do? What okay, you found peace. What do you do tomorrow?
Got it.
And so that's what it got me.
So, and I remember, man, I remember our first interview. I remember the conversation we had, that you grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, and that a tremendous amount of pressure. And just a couple of days before, I've spoken to another fellas. He grew up Amish, right? Amish, and inside of that, he was he was expelled from that because of usage of cell phone. Right, so he used a cell phone once, and they gave him a warning, and then he used a cell phone again, and there we go. He was out, and basically, that was the deal, because inside of that culture, inside of that community, inside of the belief system, that's what it was, right?
And cell phones, what's the matter with that? I never heard of it.
I don't know, because like there is restrictions in any fucking religion, that if you point any religion today, there are some restrictions,
right,
except the ones that says, hey, put some fucking oil on your nipple and just believe in something in you, right? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Like let's talk fucking realistically. At the end of the day, like there are guys that can sit down and say, okay, scientifically this is where we are. Then there are guys like me and you that says, well, there is a bigger power out there. If you choose to call it God, that is your choice. And if you choose to lead yourself to that conversations with God and connection with God, and that becomes a choice, and that's the journey that you went on, which is, I want to connect to this thing called the voice. I want to connect to this bigger cause, bigger purpose, this greater force out there, and I want to be a seeker. And that's what it was. Like, at the end of the day, Warrior Week for you was the permission to become the seeker. Not just knocking at the door, but breaking that goddamn fucking door and going through that.
No, I think you're right in that. I agree. Every religion has has their rules, and I'm not saying anything discouraging or disparaging about Jehovah's Witnesses. A lot of my core beliefs I still hold, from there, but they're my beliefs.
Correct.
They didn't come from but they originated there. But
correct.
I got a chance to actually make the decision myself, and I'll tell you, when I went on just looking for answers, I checked out every religion that I possibly could.
Yes.
And if you look on my shelf today, I have 3 versions of the Bible. I have a copy of the Quran. I have the Book of Torah.
Yes.
I have the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, I have everybody, because I wanted to see what everybody believed in.
Yes.
And what I found, Coach, was they're really not all that different,
dude. Here's like I grew up in a country that kind of enforced religion on you. Like, dude, like you better fucking follow these, or your dad is gonna get beat up, right? It's basically that, or your parents are gonna get in trouble if you don't follow. So it was enforced, and it still is, goddammit, today. But what does enforcement does to people? I escaped from that environment, but what that continues to do to a 10, 12, 14, 16, by the time that guy is 19, he's going to hate that religion. He's going to hate God. He's going to have a distance because he sees God as an enforcer through these guys that are enforcing it.
Right. No,
and so
right.
It has the reverse effect. Although at the beginning, there's nothing wrong with structure and education. And when you're a kid and you grew up, but inside of that, like when I was growing up, man, I've got all these fundamentals, and then we moved away from that environment, and up to today, just like you, I have those fundamentals, but they're mine. They didn't come from an enforcer. That I was able to live life through with them, and with the eye of wisdom, look at them right now at 41. Look at them and say, this and this and this has always served me. That's mine.
Yeah, and it's your free will.
Free will.
You chose it, not because someone said, "Oh, you're gonna die."
Pressure.
If you don't do this shit.
Yeah.
Because everything, I grew up. If any of this shit you do, you're gonna die.
Yeah, it's the fear, right? It's the fear factor.
And so, the other thing out of it, I learned that I'm not afraid of death necessarily.
True.
I'm not saying I want to die.
No.
But I don't have the same level of fear that I used to about hey, when my time is up, it's up. But while I'm here, I want to do everything I can while I'm here. And I hate that people subscribe to this idea that you're here to suffer.
Correct.
And then you'll get yours later, especially us as black people. That that's been conditioned into us.
Yes.
It sucks now. We know it sucks now, but God says you need to endure this shit because you're gonna get yours later.
Yes. Yes.
I'm like, fuck that shit.
Yes.
I want my shit right fucking now.
Right.
I'm not waiting for a goddamn thing.
Yeah, I agree, because the future doesn't fucking exist.
No. So, that's one of the things I chose to believe is that, no, I want mine now. When it's done, when I'm done, I'm done. If I get some later, that's a bonus.
Inside of this has been going on, dude, in every fucking religion. There's this conversation of sacrifice yourself so that on the other side you'll find paradise, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Listen, at the end of the day, here's my opinion, right? These are tactiques and tactical ways and systems and that were implemented to make sure that at that time when this notion of religion or God was introduced, that people had something to follow in order to start creating certain structure in the fucking chaos that was going on.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example on there's a lot of people asking like, okay, why do Muslims don't drink alcohol, right? So I'll give you the fucking source where that comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that all of them do, but initially what was going on, like back in the days of 1500 or 1700 years ago, like 1700, about 1700 years ago, there were these guys that were taking young girls in the desert and they were being raped. Mm-hmm. Constantly young girls were being raped in the desert and buried in the fucking desert, right? Mm-hmm. And most of them were under the influence of wine at that time. Mm-hmm. And so these rules and conditions, I don't know if they came from the sky, but they came from somebody wanting to create structure and good, somebody wanting to create good, right?
Yeah.
To prevent evil. And they said, don't drink so you're more aware of what you do. You are in control.
Right.
And that rule became bigger and bigger and bigger and like a snowball effect up to today. So in 2018, if you're going to follow exactly the same laws that came in 2,000 years ago, versus what laws can serve me as a dad, as a father, as a man, as a human today that can get me what I want and that can give me in a position where I can serve others. Because at the end of the day, all the religions, bro, all of them are saying, love your brother.
You love your brother. Don't steal. Don't kill. They all say
the same fucking thing.
Christianity, Buddhism, they all is like, hey, just be a good person.
So I want you to look at this like ecosystem that we created as men or as humans, whatever the fuck you want to call it. You got this, you got this big ass circle that is the ultimate separation circle between everyone. It's called religion.
Yep.
Then you break it down and then it becomes culture.
Yep.
And then you break it down and it becomes like race, like color.
Yep.
Right? So example of that, you could be a black man. And you could be a black man that is in America, and you can be Christian.
Yeah.
But that does not mean necessarily that you are seen welcome in a circle of a white Christian American.
No, not necessarily.
There we go. So I give you another example. You could be a black man, and you could live in Africa, and you could be Christian. You will not be seen as the same black man living in U.S. that is Christian.
No, not at all.
So you understand the layers, and this is, again, I'm not a fucking expert. This is my observation and everything I've seen in my life. But this is what I'm saying is that there are these layers created by us to divide humanity and say, I'm from this region, I'm from that region, I'm from this race, and I'm from this religion. And yet inside of the layers itself, we don't even accept each other.
No, we put the label on people, but then, and we agree we're part of the same group, but it does not necessarily mean that that person is accepted. And a lot of times, as human beings, we have this need to categorize things.
Yeah.
When we see something, we have to judge it, and we have to put it in a box, or we have to label it somehow.
Yeah.
And so even if you label something or someone a Christian, or someone black or Mexican or Chinese, who's also a Christian, that doesn't necessarily mean that
he's welcome.
You're gonna welcome him, or that you even share the same values.
True. And you know what ultimately comes down that creates these separation and these layers and these barriers? And this is what I've noticed over time and time, and this is this judgment that we pass, right? If I pass a judgment on that person, immediately I'm putting a barrier between me and that person. Because what I'm saying is that I kind of don't want to be on the other side, or maybe I want to be on the other side, and because I'm not there, so I'm going to say that guy is on the other side.
Well, we have also a tendency as human beings. We have a fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
So even though that person might be whatever he is, if we don't know that person,
correct,
or we haven't spent enough time around that person, and we see this a lot. I mean, I'm sure you see it a lot too, being of your faith, and you're walking with a bearded Persian guy here in Orange County. A lot they just don't understand.
Yeah.
And so what people don't understand, they tend to fear.
Correct.
And me as a black man, just on sight, they see a big black dark bearded man.
Yep.
and there's something about it. It evokes some fear in a lot of people, not everyone, and it's because they don't really know a lot of big black bearded black men. So hey, and based on what they've seen and heard, and whether it be rumored or whatever, maybe it's reality, we start making a judgment.
Yeah.
And so without even knowing the person, you start making assumptions, you make a judgment, and then that fear arises. And then when out of fear, that's when all kind of bad shit takes place.
And this separation that takes place is often masked by fucking hypocrisy and ultimately lies. And that's what we talk about inside of the Warriors is like, hey, man, don't tell a goddamn fucking lie. Like, don't fucking lie. Don't lie to anyone. If you don't like this guy because he's black, then just fucking tell him, man, I don't like you. But don't say that, hey, man, you're welcome. You can eat at my house. You can drink with me, and then go back and start labeling him because of a race, of a color, or whatever the fuck, religion. What do you want to call it, man? So the constant lie. So the first layer is the judgment, and then it's the hypocrisy and the lie to cover the judgment because you're too goddamn fucking pussy to even express yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like when I first moved, I grew up in the Bay Area. But then I moved to Texas. And one of the things about if you're in the South, and to your point, they're unapologetically racist.
Yeah, there we go.
But there's a certain amount of respect I have.
That's good shit.
Because I was like, hey, they let you know. I'm like, okay, they don't like you. We're good with that. We don't have to like each other.
Yep.
I've worked out. I used to go work out late at night at the gym.
Yep.
And I'd be at the gym, guys tatted up and with white power and all this, and it was a neutral zone.
Yep.
Nobody, hey, I already know how you feel about people that look like me.
Yep.
I'm cool, but I need to work out. And he's like, oh, yeah, I need to work out too. I mean, and so we were able to coexist under that roof under those circumstances. But like I said, I can respect that. What's, I think, even more dangerous and sinister is the ones that will pretend like they like you.
Yes.
And be up in your face. See, I experienced a lot of that in corporate America.
Yeah.
They'll smile, say, hey, Kelly, they're your buddy, and they'll want to have some access and proximity to you for certain things.
There you go.
But deep down, they don't really fuck. They don't fuck with you like that.
For sure.
And so, and some folks get fooled by that.
For sure.
For me, it's just about recognizing what it is. I'm okay with everybody's not gonna like me. I'm good with that. But people have the assumption that I want everybody to like me, and I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
That is, some people don't like me or not. I don't care. I don't put any energy toward it. And so I think that's where we get caught up too. You're trying to get people to like us.
Yeah.
I think just as personally, I think as black people, we gotten distracted by that whole notion of trying to get, this nation to like us. And to let us sit next to you on the bus or at this lunch counter. I don't give so fucking what.
That's right.
You distracted by that shit. Because when the other folks come over here, they don't give a fuck. You look at the Chinese community.
Yeah.
They come over here and it's about ownership and control.
Yes.
They don't give a damn about whether you like them or not.
True.
They don't care.
They don't give a fuck.
They're not trying to be friends with you. They don't want your job.
They have a mission.
They have a mission to come over here to own and control. That's it.
That's it.
So they don't get caught up in that distraction. And
I
think
agree,
we
man.
can learn a lesson from that.
So here's the ultimate formula to operate by if you're listening to this. And by the way, if you're already offended on what we're talking about here, man, like, dude, what can I tell you?
It's only going to get worse.
Well, maybe you're one of those fucking hypocrites that you're like, oh, my God, these guys are talking about Chinese and black guys. Yeah, we're going to talk about some dicks, too. I mean, inside of this game, the reality is this, is that you are either my brother in my faith, you are either my brother in my race, you are either my brother in my culture, or you're my equal in humanity. And that's what Kelly's talking about. When Kelly says, listen, man, if you're up front, you don't like, that's fine. But no, at the end of the day, we're equal as humans, so it's okay. You don't have to like me. I don't have to like you. We can coexist. There's no fucking problem there. There is no problem. And like, dude, you live this in two of the layers, I would say, right? Or three layers. You live this in the religious layer, you live this in the color layer, and as well as in the cultural layer, which is, African-American culture, and as well as, the color of your skin, and inside of your religion, I live the same way too, inside of my religion, inside of my culture, and I've immigrated 3 times. Like, we went from Iran to Montreal, Canada, Canada was home for me 22 years. Now it's been 15 years in the U.S. So everything is like, I have been circulating in this, and I've felt many times just like you with this. So today, me and you walking in the street, like, dude, there may be thousands of people that are judging, but it has zero fucking effect on me and on you, and I've seen that in the past 2 years, the way you operate. Zero effect. Zero fucking... You're not going to fucking create any fucking shame or guilt for me because of where I come from and what I do. You will not. You will not succeed at that. Guarantee. It is unfucking questionable that you're going to create any shilt or fucking guilt for me. Same thing for you.
As it should, bro. As it should. And that's... I mean, I wish... more people felt that way, because what happens is a lot of us, because of that, we feel like we need to wear these disguises.
Yes.
And you might have seen this before, where I'll run into. I'm in financial services. There ain't a lot of brothers in financial services.
Yeah, let's make that very fucking clear.
And so when I see one, I'm like, hey, I'll make it a point.
Yes.
To introduce myself, to make sure we connect, because I feel that we need that community.
Yes.
And so, but, a lot of times in those environments, people get the impression or under the impression that they need to pretend.
Yes.
Or they try to
protect something they think they have.
Yeah.
Motherfucker, what do you have?
Yeah, I was like, you that's not your team.
The only thing you have is you as a person, your personality.
I equated this, Sam. Well, I took my sons to a baseball game, and if you go to a Dodger game, Angel game, doesn't matter, and you warm up you see the infield warming up.
Yeah.
And you have the first baseman warming up the infield, and the outfielders will either toss the ball to themselves, or 2 of them will play catch, and they'll have this person that walks out on the field and warms up the other guy, plays catches with the left fielder. Now, this person will have on the same uniform. He looks just like the team.
Yeah.
He is out there has access to the field.
Yeah.
He's playing with the players.
Yeah.
But that person is not a member of that team.
Yeah.
And it's clear in the paycheck. It's clear in everything else. But sometimes when we get in certain positions,
yes,
just because we're out there warming up with the team, we're riding on the team bus, hey, I'm wearing the same clothes.
Mm-hmm.
You're not on that fucking team.
It's true.
That's something that you need to remember.
Yeah.
You aren't a member of that team. And so some of us, when we get out there in corporate America or in certain circles or just because you live in certain neighborhoods,
correct,
you feel that, I'm part of the team. No, motherfucker, you just wearing a uniform.
yes,
You just have access. You are just on the field, but you are not a part of that team, and they will let you know.
Yes.
As soon as you get a little too cocky about that shit.
yes,
So when I go out and I see people, I make it a point. I'm friendly with everybody, but I'm especially going to go out of my way to say hi and try to connect with another brother because there's not a whole lot of us out here, especially in L.A.
And talking about that, like people would watch the Wake Up Warrior movies and like they would say, "What the fuck, man? I don't really see any black guy in there, and don't see any Chinese guy, Mexican. Like, what the fuck is going on with it? Is this
We
like
coming?
Is this like an exclusive group until Kelly Curtis comes in, and Kelly Curtis comes in and talking about like being in the frontier of something that you believe in your heart, man, is the years of seeking and the merger of your desire to seek and the reality of where you are in your life and looking at yourself and really looking back at your kids and asking yourself like how do I want them to see me? I remember one particular story, bro. I'm gonna tell the fucking story because this is fucking like goosebumps in my arms. And so the story goes back to Kelly was at one of our events, and on that particular event we had somebody very special. We had Dan Searle from the Navy SEALs that came down to train the brothers for the whole day. And for those of you that know him, that guy doesn't give a fuck, right? So, but he has a big heart, but he literally doesn't give a fuck, right? So he wants to make sure that you actually get everything from the training and you extract these lessons. So, it's a 12-hour day, and it's a grinding of between lifting logs and push-up and pull-ups and crawling on the floor and getting wet and running and carrying sandbags and you name it. It's just like war zone, right? Training for war zone, training to become somebody that becomes pretty much like comfortable being all in pain, and towards the end of the event, of course you didn't know that was the end, but we knew that was coming. We go to the ocean. We go to the ocean here in Laguna Beach, and we go to an aggressive location on the ocean. What I mean by aggressive is like the waves are like 5 or 6 feet high, and they pull you. They come short and they pull you, and then it's not really sand, but it's like these little rocks, the little small rocks. And so when they pull you, and let's say your back is on it, it'll kind of scratch your back, and it's like somebody like really like putting a wound into your body, man.
That was a tough day.
So we got some good pictures. So inside of that, I remember one particular scene, and that was, you going back in the water and coming back in the water and coming back. And I remember your face looking straight forward at where the instructor was giving you instruction to go in and out and in and out. You had your arms locked with all the other guys. Most of the guys had their head down looking at somebody else next to them. They're just in their own world. But you had this piercing fucking look at the instructor somewhere towards that. I remember because I fixed myself looking. I'm saying, what the fuck is going on? Like at one point I thought you stopped breathing or something is up. But I felt the energy, right? And so we go through this thing, and after an hour and a half or something, it's over, and we're all sitting down, and there's conversations, and there are shares, and it come to you, and they ask you like, what made you go through this, and what did you get from this? But I'm not gonna say it. I'm gonna let you share what you told everybody that day, man, and who you were looking at.
Well, first of all, Thank you, Coach Dan. That was one of the most physically and emotionally challenging days I think I've ever spent. And I've done a lot of hardcore endurance events and triathlons and races and all sort of things, and that was hands down one of the most difficult days because of you didn't know when it was going to end. And one of the things that one of the tenets of warrior is there's no finish line. And in life, there's no destination. It's just a one big long journey. And so that's how I approached that day, is that I didn't know if we could have been there all night as far as I knew. I didn't know when it was going to stop. So I'm just looking at, okay, what's next? Probably was on my mind was, okay, what's next? And then what's next? And I wanted to, we talk a lot about in Warrior about, what is your why?
Yeah.
Remember your why, focus on your brother. Yeah. And so my why, that day I vividly remember my why being my family, and specifically my boys. And because it was so physically challenging, there were a lot of lessons that you learn that you learn about yourself when you go through something physically demanding. And so one of the things I always talk to my boys about is, hey, nothing less than your best. You give me your best and I'm all right with that, whatever that is. Yeah. But you give me everything and I'm okay with whatever that is. And so what got me through that day was my imagining my boys standing up there with you guys, because that's where my focus was, and looking down at what I was doing and the effort I was giving, and them being able to ask, is Dad giving his best? Yeah. Is he doing his best? And I wanted to be able to demonstrate, what it is that looks like. Doing your best, doing your all. Laying it out on the line in that there's no finish line. I mean, that the water was rough. I don't like being in the water. Yeah. I don't like it. It was cold as shit. Yeah. Yeah, I remember this. It was a long day. And, but, I was not going to quit. And I remember I got because then we did sand crawls after that. And I got a cramp I had my abdominal cramp or pull or something. And, I remember one of the coaches saying, hey, you want to get up. He took my sandbag. Yeah. It might have even been Garrett. Yeah. He took my sandbag. And, I'm out here with all the other brothers. We're all suffering. Yes. We're all suffering. And he took my sandbag and he wanted me to, okay, I'm going to give you a break and you can crawl without the sandbag. It's like, fuck you. Yeah. Give me my fucking sandbag. Who do you think I am? Yeah. Yeah. Who do you think I am that I can't do this shit? Fuck you. Give me my goddamn sandbag. Yeah. And I'll just crawl on this bitch. It might be slow, but I'm not giving up. Yeah. And there's no finish line with this. So it's an attitude. It's an approach to life that, I'm not going to be outdone, outworked. Now, someone might be able to do better. Yeah. But I'm going to give it everything I got.
I remember watching when Garrett took the sandbag from you and you kind of like spoke back to him wanting the sandbag. I was just there watching. I didn't put the pieces together until when you went on the stage the same night and you shared, your biggest lesson, which was, hey, man, my biggest lesson came back to when I was looking at my son and he was watching me. My sons were watching me. And what you shared, and basically it was then that I clicked. Now that you bring this up, like my memories are just like coming back. Now that you bring this up, this was totally related to the fact that you ask for that fucking sandbag, not to prove to anyone that, hey, man, you're a badass or you can physically fucking finish this event. But the only fucking reason why you asked for that goddamn fucking sand was because you knew your sons were still watching. Yep. And inside of your mind, the lesson that you extracted and you applied to your life up to now is, I will not ask you to do anything that I haven't done. And that's the conversation that you have with your sons today. Like, son, I'm not going to ask you anything I haven't done. Yep. That's why when I say give me your best, give me your best, and I will accept that because I've done this.
Yeah, and here's what it looks like.
Here's what it looks like. Same thing in your relationship with your wife, and same thing in your line of business. Like, you deal with people's money, bro. And you like this. It's there's a tremendous amount of trust that is put into Kelly. And the conversation with your client, it is based on one fucking fundamental that like separates you from any other fucking financial advisor that is out there. Don't give a fuck. It just fucking separates you. Number one is that, listen, man, I'm not a fucking liar. I'm done with fucking lying. That happened 2 years ago. I'm done. I'm not fucking lying. I live by this thing that's called the code. What is it? Well, it says don't lie and tell the goddamn fucking truth. Second thing that I operate by is I will not ask you to do anything I haven't done.
Yep.
And so that's where the biggest trust of your clients come in and say, okay, well, if this motherfucker has risked his own fucking money in there, then that makes sense. But if this motherfucker doesn't have any money, just finished reading a book about some guy that made money, and now he's telling me put your fucking money there, then doesn't make sense. But he's a great speaker. He looks good. I'm gonna believe him. I'm gonna believe his charm. Like, here's the reality. People don't need to believe your charm. People will believe your energy. The energy of your energy doesn't have a fucking color. Your energy doesn't have any fucking religion or any culture attached to it. That's why it's fucking pure.
No, you're absolutely right, man. People will resonate with you on a different frequency than what is right in front of them. And I think you named it right. It's energy, frequency, whatever you want to call it. You talk about read a book, and I feel the same way about all these Bitcoin millionaires today that read a book, took a course, and now they're some expert on cryptocurrency, which it's hard to say. But for me, I like to speak from what I've gone through, and I've made money, I've lost money, I've been broke. I can speak from that perspective, in that if you haven't experienced any downturns, then those people tend to be a lot more risky.
Yes,
because they don't know what it's like to lose. If you've gone through a few cycles, I've been through a few now. I've gone through the tech bubble. We've gone through the real estate crash. We've gone through this whole recession, the Great Recession, and so you get a different perspective on risk. And the conversation is a little different, and what I bring and recommend is different, based on, hey, I know I've lived through shit going just not really good.
Yeah.
Shit going real bad. So let's protect ourselves, and so that, hey, we're good in good times, and we don't just completely lose everything in the bad times.
I remember specifically last year, you were going through this like period of time where, like, dude, it was really exhausting. You were working a lot, and so I call you up one day, and like you and I speak, and you said, yeah, man, I'm going through an auditing process and this and that. I'm like, cool, okay, this. And he goes, yeah, it's fucking long and this. So I remember that yeah, like, but no one wants to have anybody in their business. I get that. But the other side of you, I remember you telling me this particular, and that was good, because I kept talking about it that day. It's like, look, like, this motherfucker is sitting in front of me, the auditor, right? This motherfucker is sitting in front of me for 12 hours going to some fucking goddamn fucking paper. Like, he's on my fucking nerve all day. I go to lunch, he's following me, he's sitting there. I see this motherfucker every fucking day. And part of me, I'm not triggered by, yes, okay, I'm triggered by somebody being in my fucking office. But at the end of the day, I appreciate the audit, because, motherfucker, find what you're looking for, because I ain't got nothing to fucking hide. Yes, I'm fucking unorganized, and yes, all the paperwork is around the place, but you know what? That's on you, because you chose to. So find the fucking files, find the numbers, put them all together, and find out that there's absolutely nothing to hide. What you see is what you get. And it took them fucking 6 months or so, and inside of that, you're like, this is, like, dude, this is good for my business. Because I can now have a conversation with my client and say, hey, listen, I'm the guy that actually been audited. I'm audited, man. I'm good to go. Not that I have to prove this, but this is a process that I accepted. Next guy next door reads a book, hasn't been audited, has some charms, good looking. Maybe he belongs to a special community, and now he gets the deal, right? But it's your money. The deal is your money. You got to remember, the deal is your money.
Yeah.
So when you give the deal, you better fucking protect the deal.
Yeah, and audits are part of our industry. That's normal process, but it's never fun. And if you've been in any business long enough, you're going to either go through a regulatory audit or an IRS audit.
Yes.
And I've gone through pretty much every type of audit that you can go through, and it's just a process that is never fun, and it's invasive, but at the same time, it forces you to tighten your shit up too.
Yes,
because knowing that, hey, this is part of doing business, it forced me to make sure that, okay, let me make sure that the files are in order, everything that they're going to need is in order, so that they don't like to work extra either.
Yes,
they want to get the hell out of your office too.
Yes.
So try to make it as efficient for them as well. And at the same time, you have a smoother. You're running your business a lot smoother.
I have tremendous amount of respect, and I say that with yes, I get fucking triggered by all these, auditors, but I have tremendous amount of respect for auditors. I have tremendous amount of respect for inspectors, tremendous amount of respect for the police force, tremendous amount of respect for any ordering force.
Yep.
The border, just think about the dude that's coming in this country, right? If we don't have proper border verification, then any Tom, Dick, and Harry can come in.
Right. You have to have rules.
You got to have order in place. This is a country of orders. That's why it's the number one country in the world. That is the most powerful fucking country in the world. There is a reason for that. There is a reason why we're living in the most powerful country in the world. And some of you that are listening to this internationally, you may actually get a bruise on your balls. And in this place, 0 fucks are given, because this is an American show at the end of the day. So if you don't like it, go listen to something else. Inside of this, the reality is this is a powerful country based on the orders that this country has put into place.
Yep.
And when you fuck with orders, then you're fucking with the foundation that everything that we believe in. When you fuck with orders, you're fucking with my kids, and I'm not going to let that happen. So don't fuck with orders. Don't fuck with orders. I will personally not respect anyone that fucks with orders. Will you?
No, I mean, you have to have rules, regulations, laws. Otherwise, you have chaos. Now, is it perfect? No, but that's really what I believe this country was found on: the ability to course correct.
Yes.
The founding fathers, or whoever you want to call them, I think they were smart enough to know that, hey, there could be some changes in the future that we don't even foresee today.
Yes.
So we better make sure that when we set up this infrastructure, it's pliable enough to accommodate for things that may arise in the future, but at the same time keep the core values and the core things that make this country, keep that shit intact. And so, we see it today in politics. Now, I think things have gotten a little ridiculous because we're in a very polarized environment now where people are so dug in on each side. There's no or very little compromise. And that was not the original intent.
Correct.
When they set this shit up. The intent was so that it was always compromise. It was never supposed to be, to where the two camps were dug in so deep that no one's meeting in the middle and talking to each other. So that's a problem. But like all things that have come and issues and that have faced this country, we'll get over that one too.
The key fundamental ingredient in the growth of this country, the way I see it and the way I feel it personally, is freedom. Because you can have order but no freedom, then it becomes a dictator. You become a slave to rules. Yeah. The freedom of choice, the freedom of individual, gives innovation to orders, and this freedom, it is so precious that we have lost thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of soldiers, men that fought for this. People ask. Some of our military brothers inside of Warrior, they ask, hey, man, thanks for your sacrifices. So we had an army ranger, one of the guys, and turned around and said, listen, motherfucker, I haven't sacrificed shit. I did not sacrifice shit. I went because I wanted to go, and I went because I had the cause, and that was to protect freedom. I didn't go to protect the blue side or the red side. That's not my agenda. My agenda was to protect the fundamental thing that brings joy, happiness, and possibilities in my family, and that is freedom, and I fought for that, and that's not a fucking sacrifice. I'll do it 10 times over. So fuck you and your sacrifice.
It is about freedom. And I think that gets lost in a lot of the conversation, especially when it concerns the military, is that, it is a fight for our way of life, freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of freedom of the press. All these things are what, I believe this country has always stood for. And when you put it in the context of the military, that's what we fight for. We fight for that way of life. And so
that everyone wants in the world. Everybody in the world wants to copy this. Let me repeat it again. Once again, if you are from another country listening to this and you are offended, 0 fucks are given at this point because this is an American show. Everybody else wants to fucking mimic this. I will repeat that again. Everybody, every other country out there wants to model what we have created and continue to create and grow. Despite all the negative comments, despite everything you want to put around it, they want to mimic the process and the procedures, and they want to know, how do we protect this freedom? And how do we grow this freedom? And how this freedom has become the innovation for our orders and growth in this country.
Yeah, everybody wants, because even though it's not perfect, it's the best thing there is. And, I think when you travel, you appreciate this country a lot more. I do a lot of travel. A lot of Americans haven't been outside their city or barely outside their state. I think I read something to where some minuscule percentage of people even have a passport.
True.
And so a lot of them don't really get the perspective of traveling outside the country because we take so much for granted here. That this shit just don't work that way in other countries.
Yes.
You can't go around saying what you want to in other countries.
No, dude.
You can't do what you want. You can't just start a business in other countries.
Dude, you can't.
That's just, it's insane. We can't even relate to that.
I come from basically three blended culture, right? Three way of thinking. The Persian culture, then the French Canadian as I grew up there, and as well as American culture here in English speaking language. And so in my travels, in oil and gas, I've traveled the world. And here's how I traveled, and it was a bit different. I want to share this, is that, I traveled, but I saw everywhere that I traveled to with three perspective. I saw it with my Persian background and Persian culture, then I saw it with my French Canadian culture and background, and then I saw it with the life that I live here in America and how I adopted and integrated here for the past 15 years. So I look at this very differently. And so I've traveled I've traveled mainly to remote locations, so countries that normally you would not travel to, right? So I went to Russia, I went to Kazakhstan, I went to a lot of Asian countries, I went to South America and all these frontier locations, and also a lot of Middle East I traveled because of oil. And so I was able to observe behaviors and patterns. And India when I went, and my own country when I went to visit back in Iran when I was, my mother-in-law was sick and we went back. And I remember particularly things about every single visit that was either a symbol of restriction or a symbol of just not having infrastructure, service, and poverty, or like, dude, I'm telling you, I came back from India and I would appreciate like toothpicks and ketchup packets that we have, like I've never appreciated them, because I've saw with my own eyes families living at the corner of the street underneath this pole, the pole for the red and the yellow and green lights, the pole for traffic.
Wow.
That pole represented their house. There was a little pod and they were just eating there, and that was their house. And many of them, so they would claim poles and say, this is my house in the middle of the street. Wow. I've seen that with my own eyes.
And see, and you probably see what we consider poor here. Poor people in other countries, they would wish for our level of poor. Oh. they would feel like they have won, because even at the most poverty-stricken areas, you're not third world poor. That's a whole nother level poor.
Yes.
I mean, it's just there's just a difference.
And people operate differently. They appreciate things differently. Mm-hmm. Every single item is just appreciated differently. And so every time I would come back, there is just one thing that I would be so proud of, and just sitting down, I remember all my travels and so proud of this freedom, freedom to choose, freedom to walk, freedom to go to Walmart, freedom to do things that I want to do. Dude, I went to Uganda on a trip, and I had to live there for 3 months. Wow. And this goes back to exactly 2008. In 2008, I go to Uganda for 3 months, and at that time I was drinking. I remember I was drinking I was drinking every weekend. And so I go to Uganda, and I'm like, okay, this was a shocker for me, man. Somebody came up, picked me up, and it was like 11:30 at night. And then we had to drive through the jungle to go to the city, and it was like a 2-hour drive. Wow. And in the middle of that, so the jungle is just all dark, and then in the middle of that, there's all these cities or towns, but the towns are all across the road. And as the car would stop, like, people would try to come in, and I noticed there's an M16. The guy carries the driver up front. I asked him, what is this for? He says, security. I didn't get it that night. Later on, I found out that each store or each bank has a security guard in front of it with an M16, and it's just the rules of operations are very different. Oh, yeah. And so that was, dude, I was scared as fuck that night because I don't know where I was. All I had was a fucking BlackBerry that was not working because I didn't enable international calls or whatever. I had to call AT&T and enable that at that time, right? It wasn't automatic. So I had this fucking BlackBerry that's not working. That's all I had. And so going through that experience in the 3 months that I lived there and the conditions that I lived there, what I remember is that Africa changed me forever because of its people. What I've seen poverty, I've seen bad conditions, but I've seen a kindness that I never felt anywhere else. And up to date, it's been 10 years I haven't drank. I stopped drinking in Uganda because I was scared, because I'm not going to be fucking drunk at night. Like, I'm not. I'm going to be aware. Like, I don't want some big-ass motherfucker coming into my room at night. I will not be that guy, so I will not fucking drink.
You're going to be ready.
So for 3 months I don't drink. I come back, and it's kind of out of my system and my habit. But now that I look back, like, I swear to God, it wasn't a fucking coincidence. What I believe is that Africa actually healed me from this fucking poison that I was putting in my body.
The motherland, man.
Dude, it wasn't religious belief. It wasn't restrictions. It wasn't I'll go to fucking whatever. I'll die and I'll go to hell. No fear. There was no fear around it. It was a healing force, and I believe it came in through the people. I didn't see anybody else drink. People were having fruits. People were having, like, kids. Like, I was not around people drinking. The only time I would be around people that would actually order would be this so-called fancy restaurant that would have hamburgers, or American restaurant. So they will serve that crowd. Wow. But I didn't want to be part of that crowd. I wanted to go eat the fruits. So I lived with people. I remember we traveled to the Ecuador. And it was a 4-day trip. We had to go there, and at that time we were installing some telecom stations for the oil and gas company that we went with, and we spent a couple of days in there. It wasn't like hotels. It was just like living in the jungle, man. It's just like these little bungalows, and but I lived with people that were like the basic nature, soil, water, fruits, and hands. Like, talked with hands because they won't talk the language. I use my hands.
And they look healthy.
I look healthy, and we understand. But I believe it was the healing of humanity, man, that healed me from that poison, and that has changed me forever. The way I appreciate and see every single time I find myself in front of fruits and vegetables is just a reminder of that time. So I'm sharing this story with you, man, because at the end of the day, it's the freedom. It is a fundamental need for us human.
Yep.
And the people that I spent time in Africa when I went there, they were living freedom. They were free.
Yeah, they felt it, or you felt it, that they were free.
They were free because they were detached from anything else. There was a feeling of detachment. Like, we have so much feelings here of attachment to success.
Yeah.
That we forget sometimes our basic human need, which is to feel fucking free, bro.
Well, we forget about that free. That freedom is lost on a lot of us because it gets clouded by all the things and all the shit and all the pretending that you have to do and all that gets stripped away.
Yes.
And where was it? Last year we went to Thailand.
Yeah.
And took my kids too, and almost the same experience you had. To this day, the nicest people I think I've ever come across, and not because we were tourists. Because I've been to other countries that are just kind of nice because they think you're Americans and you're tourists. None of that. It was just genuinely nice, and I just remember thinking, wow, it left a really big impression on me. Just like it was just refreshing.
Yes.
To see genuinely nice, happy, healthy people.
Yes.
And just kind of, it just really put things in perspective for me. And the other thing, when you travel outside the country, especially in places like Thailand, you see a lot of poverty.
Yes.
But even in the poverty, or in poverty, these people, they're grateful.
Yes.
They're happy. They just don't have a lot of the hangups that we have here. The United States is the only country where you find poor people that are fat.
Yeah.
Poor people that actually have shit.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not really, really poor.
Yeah.
And you have poor people, I think, in contrast, a lot of the people that are poor in, let's say Africa or Thailand or wherever you might be. I was in China a couple months ago, and they just don't have a lot of the hangups. And I think is what you hit on is like they just don't have as much to worry about. We have a lot of shit to worry about here, whether it be bills and how we, I think a lot of our energy is spent on, how we look to other people.
Yes.
How's this gotta look?
This is what I noticed is that they don't get a checklist that, hey, you're supposed to hit these checklists, man.
Right.
They don't get that handed to them, at least from my observation. And here, this shit starts pretty fucking early. I mean, we were earlier talking about, like, you coach baseball for kids, and we were talking about how, like, the kids are awesome, but how the parents are, like, fucked up.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've coached my boys for years, and as the kids get better, they become more fun to coach because now they know what they're doing. Whether it be soccer or football or baseball, I primarily coach their baseball now. But, the kids become more fun. And as they get older, the parents get more difficult.
Yeah.
It's like, holy crap. Trying to manage the parents and the egos and all the them thinking their kid is this, and they're not really that. And the kids, a lot of times, they're just there to have fun.
Yes.
I mean, they're not, trying out for the fucking Dodgers. They're 10 years old, for Christ's sake. He may not ever play baseball again after Little League.
Yes.
Give him a fucking break. I mean, they put so much seriousness into a game that's supposed to be fun.
True.
They take, it's the adults that just snatch all the fun right out of the game. It's like, calm the fuck down.
And, we're sharing these stories through observations and how we live today, because this wasn't always how I lived. This wasn't always how Kelly lived. Like, we came into this concept of living by certain principle, and many of you may already live by this, and good for you. For me, there was this principle of hypocrisy, and there was this principle of lying, and the person that I will lie the most to would be myself. So I would often ask, who is the liar in my life? And there's a person that is lying to me in my life, and I would look around and I would see that most of the time I'm lying to myself. And as a pattern and behavior that created myself, that will force me to lie to others, hide my feelings, how I feel about things, and my expression. And that would turn into creating guilt. And guilt is when you create guilt and shame together. You may not find this word in the dictionary, but you will find it in the Warrior's Way dictionary. But guilt is a conversation that takes guilt and shame. And often guilt becomes the actual gun of the shame. Shame will take the gun and put it up his head and blow his fucking mind. And so that's what this is all about, is that our experiences, whether we come from a background of religion background, as men particularly, or a specific race or culture, should not be any fucking barriers to what we want and what we are ruthlessly committed to go after. But the foundation of that becomes from one fucking place, and that is telling the truth. By lying, we will be separating ourselves into these labels and into these circles. These are not communities. Don't make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with a community. There's nothing wrong with a group. There's nothing wrong with association. What is wrong with these is the labels inside of these association. You can have an association that has the same religion, that has the same culture, and that has the same race, but inside of that, there's major amount of fucking separation. So on the outside, the labels are all perfect. On the inside, the love is not connected and the association is not real. And so inside of this whole experience, as we detach ourselves from these labels and we start looking at one fucking thing, and that is telling the truth. And often, Kelly, people say, yeah, language is a barrier. I said, fuck you, man. Language is not a barrier. Judgment is a barrier that you put between you and the other human. Language is not a barrier. You can speak French and I can speak English. Heck, I know that from fucking experience. Was out of Africa for 4 days talking with my hands. And it was the most beautiful experience I've done. I could actually understand another human in the middle of the fucking jungle. In the middle of the fucking jungle, nowhere, with a goddamn fucking BlackBerry that did not fucking work because AT&T did not want to fucking be reached or enable it. Irregardless, in the forest, I was able to experience this, and I'm talking from experience. These are parables. These are my parables. These are my stories that I tie into the principles, such as your stories that you've tied into the principle. When it calls up to one fucking thing is that we are not separated from each other. We create labels so that the labels creates this false lift of association. And we're not even fucking associated. You don't belong to the fucking team, but you wear the fucking uniform. Kelly gave you the example. And so I share these with you, and I have my guest today to talk about this, because the reality is, ever since Kelly came into Warrior, we have seen a number of other guys coming in and following Kelly, specifically in the African American community, and following your lead. So just talk to me about, dude, how, like, there's tons of guys now, you know, and I remember you and I sitting 2 years ago on the beach, and I'm like, bro, you're gonna open the door for many others to come. And we're gonna call this black marketing. and you're laughing, but my intention was that there's gonna be a day, but because you made the decision to give yourself permission to say, fuck you, there is no fucking label in this place. There is no label. There is no separation between me and these men. We have the same common pain, and I am a seeker, and I will give myself the permission to be there. You're the first one that did that in the in the African-American black community, if you want.
Yep.
Talk to me about sitting here and all the guys inside of the Brotherhood. Like, how does that make you feel as a leader? But also, what advice would you have on the guy that's actually listening to this?
Well, I think as black people, especially us as black men, I'm going to say black people.
Yeah.
We tend to be a little more cautious. And, you know, when as the average black person, when they see the video of Garrett in Vegas, and they see the guys and a bunch of white guys in Laguna beating up each other, and going through this, it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yep.
Because that's our initial
It'd
reaction.
be like, hey, man, fuck that. That's a white man's problem.
That's precisely what they. Oh, that's some crazy.
Hey, hold on. I got a
shit.
message for those guys that actually think that way. If you think this is a white man's problem to be a liar, then fuck you. And this is not coming really exactly from a white guy. It's coming someone from in between white and black. Whatever the fuck you want to see it as. But here it is. Fuck you if you think that being a liar is a white-only problem or a black-only problem. All right. Okay, you can continue, Kelly.
No, so but I think what happens is we see the imagery. See, images are powerful.
Yes.
And what happens is they see the images, and a lot of times they don't really hear the message. I may not have heard the message had I not met Garrett years prior.
So true.
Had I just seen this guy online, I'd be like, "Fuck that!
Yes.
Who is this motherfucker?" I probably would have not had even stopped and listened at all. The fact that I had seen him before, I'd resonated with him before, and then years later I see him again, it made me stop and listen.
Yes.
And when I stopped, I'm glad you used that word seeker, because I've always called myself a seeker. And I've always been able to strip away the message from the messenger.
Yes.
And so regardless of what, Garrett himself is polarizing. You love Garrett or you don't.
Correct.
He's almost like Donald Trump. There ain't nobody right in the middle with Trump.
Yeah.
You riding with this dude or you don't.
Yes.
And so as a polarizing figure, Garrett forces you to make a decision about him. And so, but I was able to look past a lot of, like I said, the messenger and hear the message. And the message is solid.
Yeah.
The message is universal. The message is that's not black or white. This shit can help any man.
Yes.
Because we all have the same problems.
Yes.
We think we don't. We think we're different, but we're not. We're really not different at all.
The common problem among all of us as men, and I've said this many times on the other shows, is simply the fact that we are not socially alone, or we are not alone in our communities, in our religion, in our culture, in our race. We are not alone there. We are not alone in our associations. We are simply fucking operating alone as men. There is nowhere to talk about feelings across and all aboard with our business, with our wives and our kids and God and how we feel about our body, how we take care of our body. Like, there are no one particular place where we can drop the pain, the guilt, and the shame. And inside of that, we are conditioned to mask our totality. We are conditioned to mask our totality. We are conditioned to believe that there is no dark side of us and there is only the light inside of us. We are conditioned to that. And that's what I'm talking about when I was talking about myself, that continuously lying to myself. And when I give myself permission to discover my totality and own it, everything went away. That is the secret of not fucking living with guilt and shame. You want to get rid of a guilt and shame? You want to be fucking happy? There's no fucking formula other than giving yourself permission to accept your entire totality. This may not happen over a fucking podcast, but at least it begins the conversation of the seeker. That may be you, listening to this show. Mm-hmm. And if that's you, just like my brother Kelly said here, forget the messenger. Forget me and Kelly talking today. What are you hearing? What is the message that you're downloading? And to get more of this, you can go to worryweeknow.com to see this episode and other episodes, and as well as the PDF, the transcript of today's show. You'll see some pictures as well in there. And as always, you can download the podcast on iTunes, Stitchers, and as well as Google Play by typing in Warrior Week in the search, and you'll find those, and you can subscribe to that. Final word, Kelly, as we close this episode, this powerful episode of the Parables from the Pit.
Brothers, I'm looking forward to seeing more of us, guys that look like me. And I think a lot of times we just need to see it. And so if I can be the catalyst of, hey, there's a guy, he looks like me and he's doing this, maybe, it's okay for me to try this out, then so be it. But the message and the doctrine and the principles are universal. there are a lot of men out there that can use it across the board, white, black, Chinese, whoever you are. There's a lot of men that can use this because, like you said, it's just we all have the same problems. We all have the same issues. You can go over to Africa or to Asia, or I was in Europe a few months ago. It's the same thing.
It's true.
We have the same issues, same problems. If you look back at any historical text, including the Bible and any other religious, reading or writings, how people interacted with each other has not changed one bit.
True. And if you are a white man and you feel that you're left out in this invitation, I'm going to extend that invitation to bring your ass inside of this conversation, either going to warriorweek.com and seeing what that experience may look like for you, or at warriorweeknow.com listening to this podcast. Black, white, whatever you want to fucking call yourself, you're more than welcome to come inside of this place and discover the permission of stop fucking lying and start telling the truth. Fellas, this was an amazing show. I thank everyone for watching and listening to this, and we look forward to the next show. Take care, my brother.
Thanks, Coach.